Hi, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of One Take because life has no rehearsal. Today, we're talking to a real icon in Miami. Okay, there is one company, and later on, I'm gonna go into what you are. But like, there's one company in the United States which we all revere when it comes to direct response. It is Proactive. I have seen it happen with my daughter, where she calls in for an offer for 19.99, and the final sale is like 119.99. And that only happens when you have a fantastic team that just clicks on all levels. And Neal has that. Neal is the guy who had Proactive only for the Hispanic market. All of a sudden, he got Proactive for all of the market, meaning super high performance, because Proactive is not a group of nice people somewhere. They are a real business. They know what they're doing, and they only want performance. So you're talking to one of the guys who is iconic in the world of call center CX UX as having one of the most quality organizations in the United States. So Neal, it's a real pleasure. I've known you for what? I don't know, decades. And but my admiration never ceases. You continually excel yourself. So welcome.
Marcelo, thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you. I have observed and consumed the podcast for some time now. Every time you publish it, at least on LinkedIn, I try to like it, listen. If it's something that's good, maybe I'll comment. But I love the great work that you're doing, and it's a pleasure to share some space and time with you. And we're gonna, I know, get into some great questions and tell stories about Proactive and direct response and Hispanic market and call centers and CX and all these things and evolutions and iterations that have gone through in the time that you and I have known each other, which has been, if I count my count is correct, I've been living in Miami 21 years, and I think I've known you all 21 of those years, which is really nice.
Probably. So first things first. How do you? I mean, how does a person, and especially you, how did you wind up in this whole business? It's a very strange business if you look at it. I mean, it's very transactional. It's a harsh business.
It is an incredibly harsh business. So the funny thing when I get asked this question, how do you get to this space? And I try to be funny about it. I said, yeah, here's my shtick, right? Yeah, I ask myself the same question. Why in the world am I in this business? How in the world did I get myself into this thing? And I try to make it a rhetorical, funny thing. And usually people will laugh at it. Um, Most people, at least that I grew up with and went to school with and got my first job, nobody said, wow, I'd like to work in the call center. The community that I grew up in, that just didn't exist. I did not grow up working on the phones. I did not have a career actually in the center handling phone calls, which is different than most people in this industry. They will start answering phone calls and they realize the opportunity and they grow and progress. Anyway, I didn't do that. I got into this space at a time when the global economy was in the absolute dumps. There were no jobs to be had. This is 2003, approximately. I just finished an MBA, and I thought, wow, I've got this great piece of paper that said I've completed an MBA, and I'm owed this, and I'm owed that, and I'm owed a lot of things like job offers and signing bonuses and things like that, because we were coming out of the telecom and internet boom, and of course, we still think, well, it's not a bust, it's still going to go on, and we should get all these things that 2 years ago we were promised we were going to get, and guess what? Nothing. It wasn't anything. And thankfully, there was a headhunter, Chad McDaniel, and hopefully I'll tag him when this gets published. I'll share it with him. Chad McDaniel took a chance on me. He saw like I had a couple interesting things, and he knew this call center that was in Colombia that was looking to bring in a U.S. VP of biz dev to be based in the U.S. in Miami. Long story short, and I don't know anything about call centers, but he's like, "Don't worry, you got this." And I got the job, and I worked for a company for a year and a half, and I did that. But then I realized, like, as most entrepreneurs eventually sort of think of themselves as like, wait a minute, I'm smarter than this. I can do this better. And I went out on my own with a partner, Andres, and we took a chance 20 plus years ago, and we started this company to be a call center operator. And that's a whole, I know we'll get into direct response and all those things in a little bit. But we had this weird niche, and it was Hispanic market and direct response. And we thought there was this great opportunity. And guess what? We were right.
Oh,
The intuition was, we were right. There was something there that we smelled it, and it was there. And we rode that wave for a while. And we'll talk later about iteration and change and all these things. But we did that because we felt that in U.S. direct response for Hispanics in Spanish language, we could be the call center for that, and we were. And that's how you and I met. And we'll talk all about all the history later. But that's sort of the how I got into it. And it's, oh my God, why am I still in this? Well, there was some great story and great feeling and great intuition we had that there was a business opportunity at the moment, and thankfully we were correct.
well, you got into one of the, apart from being harsh, from, like, I'm not an expert, but, as I've been in marketing forever, and, you and I have crossed paths many, many, many times, and other call centers. So it is not only a harsh industry, it's a very tech driven, very fast changing industry. For example, ages ago, I saw a call center in New Jersey for a guy. It's a company that we wanted to get. They manufactured, I don't know, like, this fish kind of oil thing, but
Yeah,
made out of whatever, green, whatever, it's from New Zealand or something. And they had a little call center, and the call center was like 5 people, 6 people,
yeah,
in front of, little computer screens, and then they had the little scripts and everything. Fast forward, and that technology, of course, is like ancient, like
yeah,
pulling wires. And
yeah.
today you have automated everything. Fast
Mm,
forward again, and now you have AI prompts and AI screens and AI everything. Fast forward even faster, and then you have AI analyzing the data that you create. But you have probably seen all of the changes, but you previewed all of the changes. Tell me about one or two changes that you would have never guessed at in like 1,000 years. What really caught you by surprise?
yeah. So I'll go back to what the original story of how I got into this space of thinking there's something very important and being correct to service the U.S. Hispanic market. And we did that very well, very profitably. We became a very important, if not the number one player in that space in the call center world for direct response advertising. Until guess what? It stopped working. And why did it stop working? There's a couple reasons why. I'm going to say something that might be a little bit controversial for our relationship, maybe for your audience, and especially for the local Miami market that we're is home for us. The U.S. Hispanic market stopped working.
Oh, no.
It didn't work.
I have had that discussion with everybody, including Jim Bryan, who basically stopped calling me.
Gene Bryant, wherever he is not going to be happy. Remember, he had this great publication, and we read it. I read that thing from cover to cover. That's how much I believed in it, and breathed and slept and dreamt in U.S. Hispanic market. How do we talk to the advertising agencies about the importance of not only acquiring customers, but actually servicing them in the contact center? Guess what? They didn't care. Nobody wanted to listen to it. The agencies didn't care. The multicultural so-called executives for the Hispanic market didn't care. But most importantly, the marketing and CX and contact center people at a um, general market level didn't care. And I'll tell you, go back to that in a second. Bottom line is the US Hispanic market for so many brands sure was important and it checked boxes, and nobody wanted to not represent a certain important level of consumers. But what evolved is that, guess what? Spanish speakers also speak English.
Yep.
They also consume similarly or equally to the general market. And so there's no necessarily need to only have a press two for Spanish. The people that were from Mexico, El Salvador, Guatemala, Cuba, everywhere would also press one for English. And they would feel just as comfortable or willing to transact, to buy, to consume, to get customer service in English. And
Yep.
so, going back to your question, a big change that was unexpected for us, I never anticipated, was the Hispanic market eventually became a victim of its own so called success. It stopped being profitable. It stopped needing the things that we were told and created and thought that it needed. And guess what? It was able to act as an independent, functioning, integrated component of the general market. And that's not a judgment of value or worth. There's not a bias here. It's we lived and breathed this stuff and realized at some point it was no longer viable. And close with this last story and I'll stop talking finally. We had a US, actually global consumer packaged good giant that asked us to participate in a RFP for the contact center, consumer affairs and customer care. And they sent us all the really beautifully broken down demographics and the volume and the call arrival patterns by language, and guess what? The light bulb moment for me was when this big giant showed me the volume and said, here's the English language volume and here's the Spanish language volume. The Spanish language volume was 2%.
Wow.
It wasn't the 15, 16, 17% of the population that we were thinking that needed to transact and be serviced in Spanish. It was 2%. And they didn't care really much about it. They quote unquote told me, it's really not a priority for us. The priority for us is the other 98% that is getting the rest of the consumers that are willing and able to transact and be serviced in this language. And that was for me the light bulb moment. If the US consumer packaged good company like this is thinking this way, it's just a matter of time until the rest think this way. And thankfully, I think I was right. How do I know this? Providers like us at the time evolved away at the same decision and speed to say, we're no longer specializing in Hispanic market. It's not big enough. It's not lucrative enough. We can't only do this. And so we changed, and we'll talk about the pivot later. But that was a big light bulb moment for me.
Well, on the other hand, I mean, if you were those guys and you were faced with 98% using one language, I would say scrap the 2%, concentrate on the upper 20% of the 96% that probably generates a lot of the volume. The same thing as television. I mean, when you buy television, for example, 45% of your GRPs go to like about 20% of the viewers. So at some point, you just stop buying television because you're reaching the same people over and over. I would have done the same thing. I've had that discussion a lot with a lot of agency heads in the Hispanic market, and I have been, I have been vilified at some point in some of the LinkedIn groups. But and I also think, as an aside, and I won't take over 30 seconds on this. The Hispanic markets really missed the Hispanic agencies, they missed a great opportunity because they proved that they could do really good niche advertising. So to me, I would have expanded that remit. I would say, hey, I'm a niche kind of agency. What are niches these days? Everything. Hispanics are a niche. Young people who are 18 to 21 are a niche. People who buy Ford Mustangs are a niche. I would just nicheify the entire market and prove my value there. Then the other opportunity, which I also spoke to Gina a lot about, and some other ones, you go in and you buy Hispanic. Great. Prove to me at the end that the money that I spent had a higher ROI than the money that I spent somewhere else. But nobody did. Actually, the whole industry doesn't do it, by the way.
Yeah.
But they had, it was harder for them to prove it because they were getting a budget that the general market agencies also wanted. So, they had to work harder for the same money. I had the same thing with Colgate when I was at C1A. Prove to me that the $20 million that we're spending with you are worth it. And we did try to prove it all of the time. But of course, you find this and you find many other changes. So, and I might, me voy a adelantar. I mean, like, your pivot, if your pivot was, proactive, that was a hell of a pivot. I mean, like, we're talking about the bellwether for direct response in the United States.
Yeah, we learned so much from that company, and I'm so grateful to this day for the set of clients we had there. We learned with them. Not everything everyone did was perfect, but we learned and we pivoted. We got better. We got stronger. We learned so much about media and what media was great, what media was terrible. We learned the power of Univision, right? When they would do an occasional national buy on Univision, like what that power would boom. It would look like 300 simultaneous calls with a call arrival pattern of 30 seconds or less. 300 simultaneous calls in any world, any contact center is massive, but that was brand new territory for a brand like that to enter at that level and scale in the Hispanic market. Yes, there were the few that would do like the one-offs that would go on Don Francisco and and get a spot on there, and that would also blow it out. But we started to get some clients as a result of that because we had to handle the volume, we would perform, and we would be able to generate an ROI on those very expensive spots that very few consumer facing brands at that point in time were willing to pay for Hispanic market.
Yeah. Oh, I believe it, and I've seen the power of innovation myself in terms of response. But you can do the same thing from a general market agency. You just have to hire somebody who understands the market. That's it.
Yeah,
And
agreed.
any of us with enough time, just sitting down for a moment and forgetting about our egos and just studying a market, we can understand any market completely. I mean, there's nothing to it. I've done it
Mm.
all of my life. So the issue then, and I would like to break a bit of the mold with you. Let's not talk about what you did. You are living in another revolution, which is the AI revolution and the bots. I personally think that if I were if I were 70, which I am, and I didn't have anything better to do, I would create AI bots for customer service. I love them. Where are you going to pivot in the next, let's say, 2 years? How do you see it?
Yeah, it's a prescient question that we have had to resolve at least a year, if not 2 years ago, and we have worked towards that. So we utilize AI and leverage the power of AI in multiple ways. We never resisted. There was those who say, well, if you're the live agent call center, you got people in the call center, you're going to compete against the AI, and the AI is going to cannibalize you and eat you up. Well, that could be true if you resist it, but if you embrace it and learn how to use it, you can have harness an incredible power and opportunity to earn new clients, new channels, new business opportunities, new lines of business, new ways of providing solutions that you would have never thought about without having the AI. So a couple examples: we talked about LLMs. We will use the AI as an assist tool. It's called Agent Assist to
Right.
help the call center agent who's sitting in the contact center in real time. So there's an engine that's listening to a call or reading a chat, and it can recognize, hey, call center agent, here's the answer to the question that was just asked. Or in real time, it will take what it's listening to, the customer's name, their email address, their mailing address, their birthday, whatever it is, and put it into fields automatically. It will take information, it will summarize it, it will paste it into the correct fields, and it will help the agent in real time. And what the impact of that is that it reduces the friction for the agent doing the work, reduces the friction for the customer because they're going to have their question responded to hopefully faster and have the problem resolved quicker. All of a sudden, the agent is actually a lot smarter because they have a tutor in their ear and on their screen providing information and responses. We also, in the back end or the non customer facing world, listen to the calls and analyze them and score them and evaluate them. Here are the things that were said. Here are the things that were not said. Here's what we did well. Here's what we didn't do well. Here are the reasons why customers are calling and contacting us. Here are the things they want to know. And we can take all that data and break it down to a SKU level, a store level, a line of business level, a region level, a specific group of agents or skill level. There's lots of ways to slice and dice the data that we talked about, but the AI does all the difficult work rather than sorting through the 50,000 lines of data that we talked about before we started recording here. The AI can do just about all of that as long as you give it the correct prompt and instructions and configure it the correct way. And so we're doing that. There's a ton of work that's available using AI for employee facing work
Yep.
as well as consumer facing work. And we leverage both. By the way, the important thing is what works for one client doesn't necessarily work for the other. So we're always customizing and tweaking and personalizing the solution. And everyone says that and uses those cliches, but you can't say, well, it worked for for Proactiv, and we're going to apply it to the Omega,
Omega
Omega
3.
client. It doesn't work. You develop this stuff, and that's intellectual property and learning that you've applied to a specific client and use case, and that's not going to be able to be copy pasted for the next thing, unfortunately.
Well, I was going to say, because talking about the famous 50,000 lines of data and the 11 columns, I walked in thinking in a logical way, as I would have thought. And then I would say, like, I just want a correlation of this to that. We used to So the last two columns were the CTA, of course, and then, well, last three columns. There was a CTA, there was a cost per acquisition, but there was also, we used a randomized landing page. I think it is called On Bounds. Pretty sure it's called On Bounds. And it basically randomizes the landing pages apart from the advertising. So you figure out which offer, pulls better, whatever. I approached it one way, and then halfway through it, I realized I shouldn't approach anything anyway. I should ask ChatGPT in this case, do every possible combination, and then tell me what the strongest mathematical correlation is to the
Hmm.
three different columns, and then figure it out.
Hmm.
So, in many cases, you would certainly say that. I mean, if you have all of that data, in some cases, for some clients, it could be the agents on the phone. In some other cases, it could be the pricing. In some other cases, it could be the SKU. But AI gives you the amazing possibility of going in and saying, I don't know anything. So here's all of the data, put it there, organize the damn thing, and then figure it out. Just make every possible combination so that you have A against F, B
Hmm.
against F, whatever. But then you have A and B against F, and then A and B and C against F. Because AI never gets tired and it never gets cranky.
AI. So in the context into this applies, AI doesn't get sick. It doesn't churn. It doesn't quit. It doesn't call out sick. It doesn't perform poorly one day and excellent the next. It doesn't respond badly to a boss telling it and giving it feedback and constructive criticism. The bot. There's something to be said for the level of consistency that can be attained in performance at fractions of what a human costs, for better or worse.
Yeah. But mainly what I like is it doesn't get cranky. Because I remember when we did that for Nabisco, poor Lina, every so often she would get cranky. I mean, like, Lina, look at this data from this angle, and I want an
Yeah,
analysis of this. And then at some point, it's like, come on, guy, it's Friday, 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
yeah,
Enough of this. I
yeah,
want to get out of here.
yeah,
AI doesn't do that. It couldn't care less. You just ask and ask and ask, and it gives you
yeah,
stuff. I
yeah,
think it is marvelous for a business like yours because honestly, you have a lot of variables and you have no clue which one is going to work.
yeah.
So you look at all of them and it's fantastic.
Anyone, however, that says that they're an expert in AI or they've been doing this for 10 years, run for them. They're lying to you.
Of course.
AI is about testing, iterating, fixing, adjusting, learning, and getting better. The old thing everyone we all see on LinkedIn everywhere: fail often, fail fast. Well, it applies to AI. You will fail on some things. That's okay. Fail, do it quick, learn, adjust, and go back and rewrite the prompts, rewrite change up the LLM, however it has to be done technically, but learn from it. We're in that process right now, and we've been doing this for 3 years. But every day we learn something new and different. And I think the key where you can be successful is um, how fast you iterate. I'm not sure if you were going to ask me this or not, but I think about, do you do it yourself or do you go to the vendor or supplier market? And I think this is a supplier market. The importance of suppliers right now is absolutely critical. There is a glut of providers of AI solutions in quotation marks.
Yeah.
They're all over the world. They're all probably incredible. I'm not sure there's much differentiation between most of them. In a few years, there will be a correction, if not sooner, and half or more might be gone or have been bought out, or will just be taken out of the market in some way, shape, or form. But right now, you don't need to have the internal expert to program and develop. One can do with some reasonably smart people. Go to the vendor market and get, and it's available. It's very accessible. It's essentially the as a service type model with some monthly costs and some setup things, and the commitments are not that large, to be honest. And it's available, and it's only going to get better and stronger and more powerful.
Yeah. I also think it, maybe not so much on the call center level, but definitely for the AI's bot that appears on a website, that bot that says, hi, I'm,
The
Anne,
chatbot,
how are
yeah,
you? What can I help you with? I think it could be developed even into like a little micro industry at some point because, a lot of people bring different points of view to it. I personally like it. I don't think I would be ready to do it. It is not my personality to do it.
Yeah.
I have another completely different type of personality. But there is certainly an opportunity there for a lot of people, including older people, by the way, which, if they break away from the mold, from the boundaries of, like, oh, yeah, well, this is technology. It is there. I mean, and you can learn as much and as fast as anybody. It's just like, it just happens. AI
Yeah.
is very forgiving that way. You
Yeah.
can ask it really stupid shit, and then it doesn't mind.
It
I
doesn't
mean,
judge you.
oh, yeah, it's great.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, by the way, we're like way longer in time than I thought. This is super interesting. But let me just ask you the last one. And this is one that I plan to do like a reel of, these answers because they're useful. I was telling you about this other guy, I'm not going to mention his name, who was telling me that ageism has finally hit him. So I really want to take that bull by the horns at some point. If you hear a thunder, we have a storm right here in Coral Gables. So let's say you're advising somebody like you, actually, somebody who's going to hire people, looking at candidates, whatever. What do you tell that CEO about older candidates? Or let me put it this way: what would make you hire an older candidate?
In my quote unquote old age, I have learned, I think, that having the best schools on the resume doesn't mean squat. Having worked at the best companies doesn't necessarily mean squat. I think, and this is a bit of a cliche, but I would hire for grit. I would hire for perseverance, for tenacity, for desire, for willingness, for loyalty over someone who's going to be hired just because they went to Harvard. Harvard doesn't mean anything. It means you graduated from Harvard. I'm just using an example, but someone who's going to be loyal, who wants to learn, or has the ability to learn and stay late and work until the end, is going to be honest and not steal your money and work to get the result that you've asked. I value that over pedigree.
But as it relates to older candidates, do you find that more in older candidates or do you find that less? What would you
Less
say?
and less in candidates. It's a harder thing to discern. We all get hot. We get distracted by shiny objects
Hmm.
at the university, the graduation, or fact that they may have worked at Procter and Gamble, just as an example. Those things are shiny objects, but they don't determine success. They don't determine tenure. They don't determine that you're going to be successful to get them to follow your lead or be part of a team that works well together. I think one has to dig deeper and try to figure out, can this person work in a team environment, if that's important? Is this someone who's going to stay late? Is this someone who's going to go the extra mile? Is this someone who's going to really be faithful to the objectives and the results that are important for us? I look for those things, and certainly age is not a determinant of that. I value the experience that someone older will bring, just as I value the experience, the energy, hopefully, that someone young might bring. But for me, it's not a factor of age; it's a factor of willingness and desire, and I think grit, for to use that word that keeps appearing.
Yeah, okay. A lot of old people have a lot of energy.
They
As
do.
by the way, any concert that is heavy metal today will show you because all of us are ancient.
I don't know how I know you attend heavy metal concerts here locally in Miami with some level of frequency, and you photograph them, and that's incredible. You have far more stamina and energy than I do. I go to a concert, I get cranky after half an hour because I want to sit down or it's too loud or something like that. And the stamina that you have to go through those things is just it's admirable.
Yeah, I love it. So, Neil, it's been a fantastic pleasure. I know you're in Miramar out there somewhere, but should you ever find yourself on this side of civilization, let me know. I would love to have you for lunch, for breakfast, cafecito, whatever. Uh,
Jamon
yeah.
Serrano. Jamon Serrano. I know
Okay.
that you are a connoisseur of most gourmet things, and maybe not
Spain. Yeah.
necessarily
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
Spain. So, like, hopefully, it will be a cabecito cubano, but a jamon serrano, or some delicious thing from Delicias de España or one of these places that's local
Come to
in the
my side
US.
of the world. There's a jamón serrano thing in Miracle Mile.
Vamos.
Siete
Done.
something or other. I can't remember what it is, but it's right there
Good.
in Miracle Mile, and it's very near Graciano, so we can have cafecitos. We can have jamón serrano first, and then go to Gracianos and have
I love
like a
it.
pastry or something because they're really
I
good.
love
Anyway, great to see you, man. Big hug. Thank you very much for taking the time, and hopefully, we'll have the jamón serrano soon.
Amen. Marcelo, thank you. God bless all the things, the great things that you've been doing in your content generation here and um, uh, getting the voice out against ageism. It's something I honestly had never really thought of or paid attention to until you started to really voice it and create content around it. I think it's a wonderful mission, and I wish you tremendous success of continuing to show that age doesn't matter. What matters is the experience. It doesn't matter the bucket of what that's next to you. What matters is the grit, the
Yes.
experience, the voice and intelligence and emotional intelligence that many of us have that are above a certain threshold in age.
Well, thank you. Really appreciate it, and hopefully, I'll see you around.
Take care. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye bye.